Hi guys, it's Tamra, the Judeo-Christian medium, and tonight I will be channeling Chris Cornell. Yay! Hi Chris. He's waiting patiently in the corner because I've been procrastinating doing this. I'm sorry, Chris. Anyway, he's bent down. He's chewing on like it's like grass you'd see in the country. It looks very country-ish. He's wearing a really nice blue, like a navy blue, very proper fitted, it looks like Ralph Lauren style Oxford shirt, and it has very nice, he's showing me the details. It has like pearly white buttons, and it's a little bit low cut, and then he's wearing a gold cross. How appropriate. He has his shirt tucked into fitted, not too tight. I wanted to describe it. It looks very nice. Fitted jeans. They look like normal colored jeans, but then they're worn out a bit, like on the thighs and down. They look very nice. And he's wearing like light tan cowboy boots, and he's like in a squat, like, and he put on like a dark tan cowboy hat, and he's just glowing, guys. And his hair, he cut it like a bob. He said bobs are in style now, and it's brown, and then he put some like blonde highlights in, but it's all one length. And welcome Chris Cornell, guys. Yay. I don't know where to start. He's been with me for a long time. And I just finally had to make this video. I haven't filmed in a while because he's just been with me and just been giving me so much information. And finally, we both and my team, we were just like, okay, this is enough, because he and I, we could talk for hours, and he has so many messages. So before we get started, if you haven't tuned into me before, like I said, my name is Tamra, and I'm a Jewish Christian medium. And I know for some of you that might sound strange, but I've explained it in other videos. You can check out my About section. You can check out my playlist where I have things broken down, and I explain, sorry, a message just came in. I explain my experiences of being a medium, and how I've come to this. And I'll just give you a very brief explanation. Sorry, I got distracted by my message. So throughout my lifetimes and my lifetime with Jesus, I've connected to Jesus through my mediumship, through near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and through reading angel cards. I've connected to Jesus, and we've discussed this. Jesus and I, in our lifetime, were Jewish, and then obviously I'm also Christian, and that's just a whole rabbit hole. But he's told me that that's what I am, and that's my DNA and my spiritual DNA. So that being said, I'd like to pray to my team before we get started. Just gonna take a deep breath. I got really excited. They're saying for you guys to take a deep breath. This is really important. This is an important read. They're all coming in. And let me just explain who my team is. So we have God, who is all around us and in us, but is an energy that comes in from my upper right. And sorry for closing my eyes, I'm connecting to them. I can feel his warmth. He comes in as a masculine figure. And at this point, guys, they're coming into me as just colors. He's a white energy. It's sparkling gold and silver. And I'm going to pray to them, and how I pray to them is by thanking them. And you guys can do this too if you'd like. I'd like to thank God for everything. And God connects down to Jesus. It's through colors. And Jesus is right below God in my upper right. And Jesus is very indigo. And he also has the colors around him of God. And I'd like to thank Jesus for peace. And I'm in New York, if you hear traffic. Jesus connects over to Mother Mary, who sits at my right-hand shoulder. She's also very indigo, same colors as Jesus, sparkly white, gold, and silver around her. I'd like to thank Mother Mary for peace. Mother Mary connects over to Father Joseph on my left-hand shoulder. And they are the same colors tonight. I would like to thank Father Joseph for stability. Father Joseph connects over to Archangel Michael, who sits, this is a circle, and Archangel Michael sits to the right in front of me and to the right. He's very indigo. I'd like to thank Archangel Michael for protection. Archangel Michael connects over to Archangel Metatron to my left, still in a circle. I'd like to thank Archangel Metatron for entertainment. Archangel Metatron tonight is very orange, red, and yellow. And Archangel Metatron connects over to Archangel Eric Medhus, who sits right next to me, a little bit in front, on the left. Thank you, Archangel Eric Medhus, for connection. Archangel Eric Medhus is connecting me to this team. That's been his new job on the other side. And Archangel Eric Medhus is very indigo. Archangel Eric Medhus connects out past Archangel Michael in a larger circle to my right to Archangel Sandalphon. Sorry, sitting right in front of me. I think you ditched out for a second, Archangel Gabriel. Archangel Eric Medhus connects over to Archangel Gabriel, who's sitting right in front of me, and it's very warm. Thank you, Archangel Gabriel, for acceptance. Archangel Gabriel is very red. Archangel Gabriel connects over to Michael, through Michael, past Michael, to Archangel Sandalphon, who's very white. And I would like to thank Archangel Sandalphon for intelligence. Archangel Sandalphon connects to Archangel Raphael, who's very violet. I'd like to thank Archangel Raphael for healing. Archangel Raphael connects over to Archangel Azrael, who is white, violet, and indigo. Thank you, Archangel Azrael. Thank you for organization. Archangel Azrael connects over to Archangel Jophiel, who's very sparkly, white, gold, silver. Thank you, Archangel Jophiel. Thank you for magical beauty. And Archangel Jophiel connects over to Archangel Uriel, which is me. Archangel Uriel is white, a little bit of indigo, violet, very indigo. Thank you, Archangel Uriel. Thank you for my mission. Archangel Uriel connects over to Archangel Zadkiel. Thank you, Archangel Zadkiel, for balance. Archangel Zadkiel is very green. Archangel Zadkiel connects over to Archangel Jeremiah. Thank you, Archangel Jeremiah. Thank you for wildness. Archangel Jeremiah is very yellow. Archangel Jeremiah connects to Archangel Raguel. Archangel Raguel is very red. Thank you, Archangel Raguel. Thank you for swagger. Archangel Raguel connects to Archangel Chamuel, who's very bluish, like light bluish gray. Thank you, Archangel Chamuel. Thank you for calm. Archangel Chamuel connects to Archangel Ezekiel, who's very corn colored, like a harvest. Thank you, Archangel Ezekiel. Thank you for nutrition. Archangel Ezekiel connects to Archangel Haniel, who is very light pink. Thank you, Archangel Haniel. Thank you for sleep. Archangel Haniel connects to Archangel Daniel, Daniel McDaniel. Thank you, Archangel Daniel, for humor. And Archangel Daniel is a mixture of red, yellow, and orange. So this is my team. They are also Pleiadians, Arcturians, and tall whites. So as you can see, this is the color of the rainbow. The influences are, the Pleiadians are more indigo. The tall whites are more white, and the Arcturians are more yellow, orange, and red. We have this rainbow that swirls. This is the 12th dimension, and it swirls all the way down to Earth, which is the 3rd dimension. This is what many people refer to as the rainbow connection, and it connects our spirits to the other side in many, many ways. So some of you may be asking, what are Pleiadians, Arcturians, tall whites? So I'll just give a brief explanation of that. When God created humanity here on Earth, he got together with the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, and the tall whites, and the reptilians, who were already in existence on other planets and in other galaxies to create the humans of Earth. But this is my team. I'm Archangel Uriel. My mission is to help others with their mission, and to connect to galactic beings who would like to bring messages to you. So Chris Cornell is coming because he has a lot of messages. A lot of messages. So he's saying that he's also connecting to others because it's not possible for him to just give me all of the information. So tune in to others. He said he's connecting to mediums, tarot readers, spirit boxes. So he's saying most of it is valid. Watch other people he connects to in different ways. He may connect to people through their intuition, through feelings, sensations. He told me he has connected to people through spirit boxes. So listen to that. And you know, as we all say, take what resonates with you. These are just the messages that he's giving me. So Chris Cornell, who is Chris Cornell? So guys, Chris Cornell is in the spiritual group of the children of Jesus. So in this group, even though Chris is over here right now, Chris sits behind, not behind, but out from Jesus, a little bit under, out and under. So Chris Cornell is a son of Jesus. So that's what he will always be. There have been lifetimes where he's been the actual son of Jesus. Now, Jesus has had many lifetimes. I will make videos about that. But many of you can probably feel that Chris Cornell is the son of Jesus from his experiences, even the way that he looks. So how is Chris Cornell connected to me? Well, I'm Archangel Uriel, and Chris is the son of Jesus. So spiritually, Chris is my nephew. And we'll get into that in a little bit. I have notes here, so I want to get to the notes, because they're in the notes too. So throughout this experience, I did automatic writing, so I have notes, and then I'm gonna pull up on my computer. We talked so much that there were just times that I couldn't get to my notebook, so I did like voice to text, so we'll look at that after. And many of you want to know how he passed. So I'm going to talk about that at the end of this video. And I feel that I got a very clear connection from him. I'm saying that in advance because it's very controversial what I'm going to tell you all, but I just have to tell you, I went round and round and round with my team, you know, through Jesus. So right now, Eric Medhus is connecting me to my team, to Chris, but I get validation from Jesus. And trust me, guys, I have gone round and round because what I'm going to tell you is hard to tell you and very controversial. But let's get to the notes first. So Chris Cornell, when he was here. Chris, there's so much synchronicity. So Chris and Christ, we can already see Chris's mom was a medium, so we can already see that connection. And Chris's brother is named Peter. So think of Saint Peter and Jesus. And I will get into this at another time, but that resonates with me. I will explain that in a future video. So he was born Christopher Boyle, but then his parents got a divorce and he went by his mother's name, Chris Cornell, which has a nice ring to it. He's saying, yeah, if you guys name your child, that flow is good. Like, with the two C's. Okay, so Chris came from, his father was Irish Catholic, just like me. And he came from, obviously, a galactic bloodline, but a galactic DNA bloodline. And it's the same bloodline that I am from. It's Gaelic, Celtic, and that's through his father's side. Oh, he wanted me to point out, yes, the number 2. So I've been corrected about the numbers of the archangels. God is number 1, Jesus is number 2. So keep that in mind. Many of you like to look out for synchronicity. So if you see 222, the number 2, some of you might feel connected to that number. And Jesus knows that everyone connects to 33 because his life path was a 33. And Jesus' mother, Mother Mary and Father Joseph are a trinity, and same with God, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost, which is the spirit of Jesus. So 33 also connects with Jesus. But the reason I'm using number 2 is Chris was born 7/20/1964, so July 20th, 1964, and it's so interesting. That makes him like a number 2. You know, his birthday, so he's always like that number, and very synchronicity also. So okay, he was born, like I said, 7/20/1964, and I was born 7/2/1968. So we have that. It's very similar, and you know, it breaks down to the same day. So I was born on the 2nd also. Unfortunately, he passed May 18th, 2017. So I'm not a numerologist, guys, but I'm putting this out there if you all are interested in numerology. And he made a point of talking about this. So if you guys would like to, you know, if you're a numerologist and you're thinking about making videos, you can use that information. He said that you'll find some nuggets there. So he was born in Seattle and he passed in Detroit. Michigan. Many of you tuning in probably know this, but I just want to get the details. So he was the lead singer, guitarist, lyricist of Soundgarden, Audioslave. He did solo stuff. He wrote a lot for others, but he was very humble. He's got his head down. He's like, he just loved writing music. So there's lots of songs that were written by him, but he didn't like brag about it. He did lots of collabs. He did lots of covers of people he loved. He was a founder and lead singer of Temple of the Dog. And I wrote here, tribute to Andrew Wood. Yes, his friend Andrew Wood passed away. So yes, he was very close to him. So yeah, he said he lost a lot of people when he was here. So guys, he's talking to me too. This is like a hodgepodge of a lot of things. He's like, go on. And this is just a biography too. And so this is like a mixture. I'm doing like a biography and automatic writing. So they had me go and, you know, look up facts on him too. Many regard him as one of the greatest rock singers of all time. And I agree with that. He's he's just kind of looking down. So, okay, I want to get into his first marriage. So I told you all about this galactic group and about how we are, us humans, are made of the galactic groups that I spoke about. So his first wife, Susan Silver, who is a music manager, managed his band, Audioslave. She was born reptilian. And what I haven't fully explained in this video, but I have explained in other videos, if a reptilian goes dark, we would call them a dark reptilian. And Susan Silver, according to my team, Chris Cornell, is a dark reptilian. So you can look up my videos to see exactly what that means. The way that it's been described through the ages is like the Jezebel spirit, narcissism. It's a spectrum, but she is on that spectrum. And he said a good way to describe it is she is a covert narcissist, a cerebral covert narcissist. So smart, cunning, but she is dark. And keep that in mind for when we get to the end of the video and I explain his passing. So they were married in 1990 and divorced in 2004. And then he met and married his twin flame, Vicki, Carrie His. I might be butchering that. Kyrianakis. She's Greek. And so they married in 2004, and it was a much better fit for him. She is his twin flame, and this particular group of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, they continued to come back as family members, as well as Jesus and I. Jesus and I are brothers, but Jesus, Mary, and Joseph and their children come back. I know it sounds weird, but spiritually it is not weird. They come back as parents and children of the same group, as we all do. But those three, I'm only explaining this way because Vicki is in the spiritual group of the children of Mary. It's so hard to explain. Of Mother Mary. So you would think earth-wise that's strange, but spirit-wise it's a spiritual group. So it makes sense. So I've seen this before in my readings, and I've actually seen the similar look, like with this group, my group. Chris has dark hair, light eyes, and lighter skin, and Vicki is darker, and that was anyway, it just makes sense. Sometimes the way that this happened in my near-death experience, they just give me this information. It makes sense, but it's so hard to explain it. But anyway, I will try in other videos. So just let me tell you all that Susan Silver, Chris's first wife, never got over the divorce. Chris had 3 children, one with Susan Silver. Her name is Lily Cornell, and Lily Cornell is reptilian. She's not dark reptilian. Of course, she's young, so that could happen. There is a risk because of Susan Silver, but her mission, Lily Cornell's mission, is to become an earth angel, and she has already done some things towards that. She's made videos about she's made videos about mental health. That's not her mission, but she's trying to do good. She's trying to help others. So her mission here is to become an earth angel. And Chris thinks that she would be a good music manager. She can sing, that's not her mission, but she would make a good manager if she could make sure not to get corrupted. So his second child with Vicki is Tony Cornell, And Tony Cornell is Pleiadian and Arcturian, and spiritually a grandchild of Mother Mary and Father Joseph. So she's a singer. Her mission here is to be a singer. So hopefully she'll keep that up. You know, she just needs to do it more. So yeah, I wrote here, Chris was a key figure in the Seattle grunge movement. So Chris's mom, Karen Cornell, is Jewish. So she's a Jewish psychic, so Jewish mystic, Jewish medium. So Chris, his DNA was like mine, Irish Catholic and Jewish. So my background is Armenian Jewish, and so it's just as this was unfolding, I've gotten used to it, but I was like, oh my God, wow. Thank you, God. It was just so much. So had we met each other, it would have been like, whoa. Interestingly enough, and I've said this in other videos, please pay attention to this, because it's really important to them that we know that certain people are for us and some are not. So I've met some people who are in my spiritual group, and I've seen them, and this explains the phenomenon of why you would see someone who is beautiful but not be romantically attracted to them. So obviously when we look at Chris Cornell, he's gorgeous. He's a gorgeous man. But when I look at him, I have like maternal, parental feelings towards him, not romantic feelings. And this is really important. And it makes sense because there is this, we come from the other side, and we are not meant for everybody, and not everybody is meant for us. So that is very important that we honor that, and it's important that we, you know, it's very a very advanced and evolved idea, but we are meant to be in communities and be able to treat each other in this way. We're not there yet. There have been times that we have been there in the past, but right now we are not there. Okay, he said that's enough about that. I can explain that in other videos. So his father, Edward Boyle, unfortunately was a dark reptilian, and it's hard to say, but you know, Chris had big plans, a big mission when he came to Earth, not only to do his music, but also to break the generational curse. So when Chris was on the other side, he knew that there were dark reptilians had infiltrated his bloodline. So he came here to correct that, and he did, through his children. So, oh, I forgot to mention, his son, Christopher Cornell. He is meant to be in the music industry. He is also Pleiadian and Arcturian. So Chris came here with starseed children, one reptilian child to become an earth angel. But he was successful. It was not easy. His father was very abusive. Thankfully, his parents got a divorce. And so, interestingly enough, I wrote here, spiritually, Chris is the son of Jesus, but through his bloodline, he is a descendant of Saint Peter. I'll explain bloodlines more in other videos. And Chris would like to say, Chris is Gen X, I'm Gen X, and that was a common mission, not just of Gen X, of some baby boomers, Gen X, some millennials, some Gen Z, and on, but a lot of Gen X people, if you're watching and you're Gen X and you have felt this challenge in your life, it was a big Gen X task to come in and break the generational curse of the dark reptilian energy. And so, like this team that comes from the 12th dimension and beyond with God, the dark reptilian energy hangs out in the 4th dimension. And that's been explained through religions and explained more to me. I'll make videos about that. But I don't want to get too into it, but yes, there was a fallen angel, and throughout history, through different coming in as a regular reptilian turning dark, through different lifetimes, an energy was created in the 4th dimension, a dark reptilian energy that was created from reptilians who went dark and hovered around Earth. And unfortunately, God has given us free will, so that energy has been around and will continue to stick around. It's something that we all need to fight in a way. But anyway, I've explained that in other videos, but as we go on talking about Chris Cornell and his challenges, our challenges, it's very important because that was he was continually being challenged by reptilians, dark reptilians in his life, and the dark reptilian energy. And I've explained in other videos how the dark reptilian energy can come to you. And it's the way that they've explained it to me is they've shown me like a soul and how abuse and trauma creates like holes in the soul, and the dark reptilian energy infiltrates and can have a negative effect. And that happened to Chris, and through substances too. So a little window to your soul can open through trauma, and then it just grows through substances and a kind of a corny way that Jesus has explained it to me is like stinking thinking. And that's really, it's a simple way of explaining it, but it's that voice that tells you like, you know, you're not good enough. Chris is saying you're a piece of S. It's that dark, heavy energy. And I've made other videos about that. You can check it out. I'll make future videos. And throughout all of our religions, some things that have been passed on are true, some things were exaggerated, but a lot of the spiritual practices that we have, many have asked me like, how does that prevent the dark reptilian energy from coming through, and why does it seem like they need, you know, so much prayer? And they really would like to say that, and Chris is bringing in these messages. They're like a team, and through Chris, they'd like to say that it's not their ego that they're asking for all this prayer. It's that the dark reptilian energy, when you're praying, when you're doing spiritual practices, when you're thanking, you're grateful, that repels the dark reptilian energy. It can't affect you when you're doing that. It doesn't like that. So that's why they recommend all of these spiritual practices and other kinds of physical practices to keep your vibration high. So let me look at my notes. Some of my notes are just crazy. Like, he would talk to me and I just like write it down really fast. He just wrote Patience. He did sing that song from Guns N' Roses. That was something he worked on, and he had. So that's a recommendation of his, is to have patience. He's saying that's really missing nowadays, patience and listening. He really recommends that if you would like to show respect to others, to listen. Obviously, you know, if they're being a jerk, if they're a dark reptilian, you know, take what they're saying with a grain of salt. But in general, to people you respect, he's saying to have patience and listen. So I'm going to go through some songs that he wanted to talk about, songs he's written and songs that he's sung. and meanings behind some of the lyrics and the songs. He said Scream was a message. The song Scream is a message to dark reptilians. And it was from his first marriage and other women he's dated that would, he said more before his first marriage, women that would yell, and dark reptilians that he knew, his father and others. And that's just a message. You guys can listen to that song about, he didn't like that yelling. And then moving on to Sun Shower. When Chris was growing up, he loved John Denver, and he loved that song Sunshine on My Shoulder. And he really wanted, when he was a kid and he was stressed and he would listen to that. That's a connection that we have too, because I can remember clearly being on my tricycle and stopping in my tracks when I heard Sunshine on My Shoulder. And it really resonated with me as it did with him. And I will have John Denver on. Yeah, he's with John Denver. John Denver is wearing this floppy. He's kind of standing behind him. They're very respectful. John Denver's wearing this like floppy, like leather type hat, like brown leather. And so the next song we talked about, it's so hard to go to my notes because I just want to talk to him. He wrote this, this song Can't Change Me, and that is about his experience of being with dark reptilian women who were bossy, dominant, a Jezebel spirit, not happy, talking down, taking down strong men makes them feel powerful. And that's what that song is about. So I'll put in these songs, I'll put in playlists if you guys want to listen to these songs. And just know that Chris Cornell was a messenger, a medium. Sorry, I have messages coming in. Speaking of messages, oh, my back is so sore. Let me take a little break, guys. I'm gonna have some water. Oh goodness, so thirsty, and a little bit of lip balm. So Chris was a medium, and his mediumship was through his music, and he wrote these songs with this team. And so when he would, he didn't fully know, he believed in a higher power, but when he was here, he considered it like inspiration. But the reason I'm telling you this is, especially if you're a musician, you're listening to this, if you knew Chris, I don't know what level of musician you might be, but pray to this team, and just know that many of you are getting downloads of information from this team, and that's what happened with Chris. So that's what helped him write this music. So Chris did a cover of Billie Jean, which was his own tribute to Michael Jackson, who is here now. He just popped in. He's like, hey. He's really smiley tonight. I'm really noticing like his cheeks. So Chris wanted to explain what that song means. What was the message in Billie Jean? So the message in Billie Jean is about a dark reptilian woman who they're showing me slithering like a Jezebel spirit, who hangs out in life waiting to take advantage of men, can sometimes even appear as a victim. And they are covert, passive, aggressive, narcissistic women. And you know, Michael Jackson sang this song, and it's about this woman who uses her sexuality, and it's not all her fault. She preys on men's freakish fantasies to lure men into bed. And oftentimes, if she knows that a man has something she needs, she will purposely get pregnant and then blackmail the man with pregnancy to, you know, ruin him, to have money for life. She will portray herself as victimized, dramatic, and generally doesn't have anything going on in her life. And Jesus says we all have a purpose. So this type of woman archetype doesn't have anything going on. So she presents herself, I guess many would call it like a pick-me, pick-me-sta. I don't know all the terminology, but as a woman who says, I will do that crazy thing you fantasize about, and dance on the floor and around, the smell of sweet perfume. So this woman is ready, and that song is about being aware, being prepared. This is the type of woman who you don't want to mess with. She will mess up your life. These songs are have very, very deep meanings. He says he loved singing covers. Okay, so the next song is called Call Me a Dog. So Call Me a Dog is about for a man, when you're in a situationship with a woman, but the woman falls in love and wants more. And so what she then does is blames the man for not wanting more, but instead of her just being like, okay, maybe we were physical too soon, you know, the energy depleted, it's blaming him, calling him a dog. So oftentimes they're together too soon, they burn out very fast, and then the man will pull away because there's nothing else there. It all just happens so fast. So it's a song about not doing that, trying to have patience, and dealing with a woman that will just turn around and say, like, all men are dogs, all men want is, you know, sex, and but it's a song that he tried to write about that in actuality there's nothing deep between them. So, but just because that happens doesn't mean that that the man is a dog or you should disrespect each other. And that's why in the song he says, you call me a dog, but I'll call you beautiful, because oftentimes there's nothing wrong with the woman, but it is a message. I wrote patience before. It's a message, even if Chris is saying, even if he's saying, even with your twin flame, you can burn out. You need to have patience. He's saying, take relationships slow. These are the pitfalls of not doing that. I just wrote, if you want a deep relationship, be deep. And that means taking things slow, using discernment, and having patience. Because he says a lot of people are saying, like, I want a deep relationship, and then they are with someone very quickly and burn through or don't even go through the stages of getting to know someone. And he's saying that your behavior, he's saying that especially spiritually, many people are separate. Like, their behavior is different than their spiritual beliefs, or they've mixed it up where they think they can have any sort of behavior, and there's such a thing as soulmates and twin flames, and that it's all going to work out, even no matter how they approach a relationship. And he's saying that that's not true, that you can ruin things with a soulmate, you can ruin things with a twin flame, and by not having patience, by not being respectful, by not going through the stages. And he's saying, you know, it's timing also, but he really wanted to make that point clear, that your behavior really makes a difference in who you attract and who you work, how you work things out with someone. So he did a cover of Imagine because he loved the Beatles and John Lennon. So he loved singing that. And he really related to it, the anti-war aspect, religion, possessions, and he understands on the other side too, you know, Chris being the son of Jesus. Jesus is about peace. Chris was about peace. So when they come here, as, you know, they're Pleiadian, Arcturian, tall white, part of this spiritual group, they come in as a peace lover, as John Lennon did, and I will channel John Lennon in the future. It's a blessing, but also Chris is saying that it can, the dark reptilian energy can manipulate that too. Because there are times where a nation, a people need to protect themselves. And there are times also where that idea can go into being a bleeding heart and letting people take advantage. He says he's seeing that now. So there is a balance that needs to happen, but that is a strength and a weakness of galactic beings that come here, such as Jesus and Chris Cornell. So I just wrote here, at some point Chris growing up tried to be invisible, and he's laughing. He's like, that was never gonna happen. And just letting you all know, if you're a galactic being, if you've ever thought like, or you have a mission to, you know, be seen and help people, you're never going to be able to just fall into the background. Okay, so next song is called I Am the Highway. And I'll just read what he said. He said, many thought I was a loser, had a bad background, a fixer-upper, especially in relationships. And, you know, it was dark reptilians. And this was his song. His response to that is, no, I'm not. I'm the highway. I'm a galactic being. I am love. I'm the son of Jesus. I'm not a doormat. He's like, not to be arrogant, and he's laughing. It's always that balance of it's like, I'm a galactic being. I'm not your fool. I'm not your doormat. It's not about being sanctimonious either. So next we have The Promise. And this, he wants me to watch this movie. This song was made for this movie, The Promise. It is a movie, a love story about the Armenian, that took place during the Armenian genocide. And I will be making videos about that, how that connects to me. I'm Armenian, how it connects to my past, how it connects to Archangel Uriel and Saint Vartan. Those will be future videos, but I just wrote down what he said. The promise we make. Okay, so this was downloaded by Jesus as a message to you all and a message to the Armenian people and other people who have been through genocides, war. Jesus says we do make a promise before we come here. You know, we come here and there's a veil. Sometimes the veil is thinner for people like me as a medium. and people connect like through music to the other side. But we make a promise to come here to do our best, to do our mission. So if we're if someone is reptilian, to follow their life path, and if they're galactic, to do their mission. And this is just a reminder to you all, because I know we're going through a really hard time, a time of very intense spiritual warfare. We're going through a biblical time, but just to remind you all that we wanted to come here. And I've said this before, if you would like a reset, talk to God, say thy will be done. If you don't know what to do next, tell God, I will do what it was, get me back on my path or my mission to what it was that I agreed to before I came, before I was under the veil. Fortunately for me, like, I've had near-death experiences, so they've been able to actually tell me, like, but you know, they will come to you through dreams, through synchronicities, through readings, all kinds of modalities. But he's wanting to remind you of that. Moving on, Wide Awake. Okay, this song is about how toxic people, narcissists, dark reptilians tell on themselves by being able to sleep when through tragedy. So maybe I've seen this in my life. Maybe you've seen this. It's not good. It's an indication that someone doesn't care. And maybe an indication that they're on this dark spectrum. And this group has no issue with removing yourself from that person, that environment. They're always talking about how life is short. So next, Chris did a cover of Nothing Compares to You, written by Prince, who he loves, and Prince is here. Prince came in with a big smile too, like Michael Jackson. It's like exaggerated. They're showing me their teeth and their dimples. Like ding. They're just being silly. But you know, written by Prince and sung by Sinead, and now they're just really telling me how good it always felt when they supported and worked with the energies of other galactic beings, especially part of this team. It just felt right with them. And you know, Chris is saying he wishes he collabed more with people and worked more with people, but there's definitely times where he felt like he was even pitted against other musicians, which there should never be, because it's just not true. And now they're showing me Lana Del Rey singing with Billie Eilish, and that just happened at Coachella, and it warmed their hearts, because they're both galactic. Both of them are Pleiadian and Arcturian, and I've already seen on Instagram that it was very touching to people, and that's why. Okay, moving on, he sang the song Redemption Song with his daughter Tony. Please listen to that, guys. That made me cry. They had me listen to that. That is a song dedicated to the prophets. That's very close to me. I'll explain that another time, but the prophets and Jesus and their struggle. And that really touched me, Chris. Thank you. So he got to sing with his daughter Tony, and Chris passed before his time, and he was supposed to collaborate more with Tony, but and this is, so the next song is called Thank You, and it was sung by Robert Plant. Robert Plant sang this with Led Zeppelin, and I will explain. Robert Plant is still alive, but at some point I may explain who he is, but he's very connected to Chris. And that song, Thank You, from Robert Plant, really touched Chris, and Chris is saying it was a dedication also of his love to Jesus. Oh, this is really sweet. I put hearts around this next message. Chris said that God, Jesus, the archangels have enough love for everyone. Just to let you all know. I'm gonna try not to get too emotional. So the next song, one of Chris's famous songs, Black Hole Sun. Let me have some more water. Oh, goodness. Okay, so Black Hole Sun. Chris found that when he got depressed, he was re-energized from the sun. He's like, oh, big revelation. But just a reminder, and Jesus has told me this, they recommend getting a half an hour of sun per day if you can. And they explained it to me, how to get sun safely. They showed me like the horizon, and someone like me who's very pale and has light eyes, they told me to look up from the horizon a quarter way from the horizon to the sun. And then if you have a little bit darker skin, look up a half. And if you have really dark skin, to look up a 3/4. And they're saying to do that for a half an hour. They're saying it's very important that the message that we've received, they do want you to be careful of skin cancer, but most people just get too much sun at once or not enough. And that's why they're saying a half an hour a day. And, you know, depending on where you are, you know, close to the equator, to be responsible. But they're saying also many of us are not getting enough sunlight. So, and they're saying many people with dark skin never get any sun on their skin, and that's not necessary either. So, this is funny. He wrote, Black Hole Sun was my sexy version of The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow. That was, he wrote that song very fast, and he was thinking of how he gets out of depression, and that, you know, the sun will come out tomorrow. Okay, moving on. I want to spend hours on these. It's so fascinating, but he has so many messages. So the next song is Hunger Strike, which was personally one of my favorite songs from Temple of the Dog. Now, when Chris was popular, even though he and I are a part of the same generation, I think I've told you all before in other videos, I used to go like a Euro phase kind of. I was hanging around with like a Middle Eastern crowd, connecting to that part of me. And we were listening to more like techno, Gypsy Kings and stuff. So I did listen to Chris Cornell, but not enough, and not in the way like of really connecting to him, going to his concerts. But I remember hearing Hunger Strike, and that song really moved me. And he's teasing himself. He's saying that was his version of how do I put it, like, just him being a bit of a bleeding heart, like being like Robin Hood, like you know, take from the rich and give to the poor. And that was like his version of that. And he knows that life is much more complicated than that, but it's like a young sort of bleeding heart man's song. But it's also a beautiful sentiment, and also about not taking too much, not taking advantage. There's this balance. It's very difficult for them to bring these messages out because on one end, you know, we have expressions like it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. They're saying that's exaggerated. That is not true. People, unfortunately, a lot of starseeds take these messages to heart and end up sabotaging their success and sabotaging the success of other galactic beings by being cheap and by not like buying a concert ticket to someone you want to see, buying a nice perfume, buying nice clothes. And it's because of sometimes not pursuing the galactic mission, and also not like repelling wealth because of these ideas that, you know, just that money is the root of all evil and that making money is bad. And so it's in the middle. It's, you know, they want galactic beings to be successful. If not, you will be run by dark reptilians. They will be in charge, which is even worse. So it's what you do with your money. Money is energy, and spending it well on positive things is a good thing. And money is also power, and it is used for health and protection, security, safety. So many of you who are very spiritual have heard of praying and saying, if I made any agreements that block my wealth, to please cut that contract. And it is true, we have free will. So if I've had to deal with this in my own life, and I've had to deal with this in readings with other people and hanging around people and having them say all the time, like talking about the greed of others and putting down positive things and nice clothing and things like that, and them thinking that it's making them the morally superior person. But by doing that, you repel money. And people that I've worked with who are like that, we even have groups of people who think that only certain races are like that, and so they won't identify with the successful race, and that ends up biting them and blocking their wealth. But anyway, if you feel like you've said too many things like that, or you're not doing well financially, that is another prayer that you can say to this team, is please cut that contract. I would like to be prosperous. I would like to follow my mission. I do need resources for that mission. So if that is possible, set me on that mission and help me. They need your permission to intervene, especially if you've made so many declarations against having money or spending money. So the next song is Fell on Black Days, and that was Chris did go through bouts of depression. It wasn't like a physical clinical depression. It was just times of being just sad. And he's saying that we go through, sadness is not necessarily bad. Sometimes it's there telling you that you need to change or that something is toxic. And he went through that, having toxic people in his life. So times where he had toxic people, like his dad, he would feel sad. When he was younger, he did turn to substances, which just makes it worse. But that song is about that, and about like just him processing this bad stuff, which is good, but unfortunately, when people sometimes are going through, are feeling sad, that's when, if they have that opening, the dark reptilian energy can come in and feed on that sadness and give you negative messages, push people over the edge. So beware of that. Okay, the next song, Spoon Man. That was one of his favorite songs, and that is a very deep song. He saw a spiritual being playing with spoons, and it's connected to gurus and healers and shamans and American Indians who worked with spoons and other instruments to play music. It's very deep. Shocker. So, and then I'm just writing these random, like, to be yourself is all that you can be. That's a line from the song. And this goes back to the messages that we've talked about, like asking to be put back on your mission or your path. That is a good guide. Next song he's talking about is Misery Chain, and he's saying that with Tony. That song is about breaking generational trauma, which he did. And the whole team is proud of him for that. The next song, Show Me How to Live, that was, he's saying that because it was very hard for him when he was here in his last incarnation, being raised by his father, who was a dark reptilian. He was like, I don't want to be like him, but how should I be? I know that I feel different than him. I want to be different from him, but I don't know how to go about it. So that was that song. Like, it's like a now what song. Now what? You know, he wrote, I don't want to be fake. I want to be authentic to myself, but also not a dark reptilian. Oh, and just to let you all know, I've said this in other videos, him, like most galactic beings, was on the autistic spectrum and the ADHD spectrum. So this makes sense for those of you who know about Chris Cornell and his struggles with trying to take prescription medication too. Okay, so moving on. The next song is Jesus Christ Pose. So that was downloaded to him, and you know, that song is about his dad. We'll just leave that there. Next song doesn't remind me of anything. That song is about his ADHD and how he loved new experiences. The next song, I Am the Highway. I think I've already talked about this. But I wrote more. I am not a robot, a stereotype. I'm a starseed, a galactic being. And he wrote, I am not cool. Yeah, we'll just leave it there. The next song, Pretty Noose, was a prophecy. Now, his passing was not prophesized, but before he came, just like Jesus, just like many galactic beings, they discussed that he could be taken out. So I will talk about, of course, how he was taken out, but there was a chance, and he actually was taken out. Well, it was said he was taken out this way. I'll explain how he was. But oftentimes people are taken out by, I don't want to say it, but like, yeah, strangulation. So the song was a prophecy, and many people think that he wanted to do that to himself, but he didn't. He didn't. You know, there were times where he got really down, where he thought about, like, you know, maybe it'd be better to end it, but no, he didn't. He did not end it. So that's really hard to explain, because but in the song it says, I don't like what you've got me hanging from. So that is a prophecy, but it wasn't fully prophesized that that's how he was going to end. It was, if that happened, there's a chance of that happening, because there's always a chance of a galactic being taken out that way. But that's not, it was not prophesized that he was supposed to be taken out that way. I hope that makes sense. But just in case he's saying it, I don't like what you've got me hanging from. And that, just like Kurt Cobain, who is here, saying, he's interjecting, like, I haven't got a gun. So these were messages. And if anything, that's a message that he didn't do that to himself. But many people hearing that song think that, oh, the title is called Pretty News. So he knew he was going to do that. It was only a matter of time. And that is not true. He was not planning that. It was not a matter of time. That was not supposed to happen. It's just a song that was downloaded in case it happened, as a message that I didn't do it. I don't like what you've got me hanging from. Just to make that very clear. The next song, The Keeper, is about, he sings, I am the keeper. And it's about being the keeper of your mission, the keeper of the flame, the keeper of the energy. That's key in helping you feel like you have a purpose. You do have a purpose, but that making you feel like you're the keeper gives you that connection to your purpose. And he was reconnecting through the music, and it was downloaded, you know, as messages to us, to humanity. And it's about always reframing your situation as to, how is what I'm doing my mission? How is this part of my mission? And here I wrote, hint, it is your mission to keep the flame. Yeah, he did explore darkness and death and all of these dark things in his writing, but he did not take his own life. He did have a lot of hidden enemies. I have all these random messages from him. He's criticizing Joe Biden for mocking Christmas and Easter, you know, having to do with his father. And he knows that this word is very strong, but he wants to say that that behavior is antichrist. I will just leave it there. He loved Guns N' Roses. Yeah, there's this line, go on and save yourself, take it out on me. That line is about abuse. He's making fun of us now. That we have something called happiness wars, where people are like, I'm happier than you, or you don't seem happy. And his eyes are bulging out right now. He's like, what a terrible thing to say to someone if they're going through something. Like, what a sanctimonious thing to say. Like, you know, they're going through something and you're like, but I'm happy. Why aren't you happy? He said having children was amazing. After having children, he just couldn't believe that anyone would ever hurt their own child. He's saying a message to women, you need to stand up and protect children. He's saying you all, you've got the feminism down, but now please protect children, please. I wrote say hello to heaven. That was that had deep meaning, about his friend Andrew who'd passed. And he just wrote a couple jobs in case someone here feels like they're a starseed, they don't know what to do for a living. He said investigate his death. It wasn't properly investigated. You can put clips together of the investigation. Put clips together of different channelers and spirit boxes and mediums discussing my death, and to prove his murder. He also said, if you are into this stuff, like watching me, watching others, this is a different job you could do on the internet, is, you know, like they do with politics, take clips and timestamps of different mediums. You know, if you're good at editing, but you're not a medium yourself, take different clips and timestamps of mediums making predictions, and then those predictions coming true. And you could be helping me and him and this team, even if you feel that you yourself are not a medium. And it will prove that we exist and that it's true. And he's saying these kinds of jobs and activities would be very fruitful and very helpful for this whole group and for him, and to help prove that the other side exists, because that in itself blocks people when they, you know, they're fed up with religion, and they're fed up with the darkness, so they just stay in this limbo in between of like just existing and not feeling, being it cuts you off from your mission, your purpose. The same thing with, you could make videos about people's near-death experiences, comparing the similarities, and contrasting. And so, yes, he's with Chester Bennington, which is no surprise. So spiritually, okay, Chris is spiritually the child of Jesus, and Chester Bennington is in the child group of Archangel Uriel. So yes, like one of my children. And so that would make them cousins, and that's why they were so close. And there's this connection with the spirit of John the Baptist. It's the same spirit as St. Peter, even though they were here at the same time. It's Archangel Uriel. I will get into that at another time. But obvious the connection to Jesus. So at the same time, so Chester likes to represent Uriel, John the Baptist, and St. Peter, and his cousin Chris Cornell likes to represent, they're going like, and represent in the house, Jesus. So, the team was so proud of them when we were here, and I will channel Chester Bennington. He's here, but he's just, not taking center stage. This is Chris Cornell's reading. So this whole team was proud of them. They were, they created a foundation to save and protect children. And also, Chris is saying that when they've come forward, when they've talked to mediums, to spirit boxes, they've mentioned the children and the book that Chester was working on, and they just want to make it, we're going to make things very clear in this video, and when I channel Chester, that when Chris has been called to come in, sometimes he's talked about Chester and vice versa. So now they're trying to make it very clear that yes, Chester, he and Chester were working on saving children, and Chester wrote a book, and they were stopped, but by different people and for different reasons. Now, if Chris wasn't taken out the way he was, he was also in danger from the same people who took out Chester. So they just want to really clear things up, and we will get to that. I'm just looking at Chris's childhood. One of the first songs he sang, and this is a whole rabbit hole, he sang at his elementary school, which was of course a Catholic school named after Jesus. He sang in front of his class One Tin Soldier, which has a very deep meaning. It meant a lot to him, and it was a song in this movie Billy Jack, and the main actor, producer of Billy Jack, and his wife were galactic beings, and there was a very important scene in that movie, and you all can look it up, where they sang "Give Peace a Chance," and guys, it was actually taken out of the movie. This is crazy, and it's really upsetting to Chris and the whole team. If any of you work in production, if you could get that scene put back into the movie Billy Jack. They're like, that would be great. They're funny. That would be great. Oh, it's getting warm. And take off my sweatshirt. Hello. I'm just being silly. This is a lot of information. That is Archangel Michael's joke. Oh yes, I didn't even explain why I'm wearing a very important thing, why I'm wearing this navy sweatshirt. My team is the Galactic Federation. I am a part of that. Chris is a part of that. Many of you galactic beings may or may not know that you're a part of that. And one of the main mission is to fight spiritual warfare, obviously break generational curses, but it has also progressed into really being about saving the children. Thank you for reminding me, Archangel Michael. So all of these messages, guys, any way that you can help with this, they're like, that would be great. Yes, he went to a church called, a elementary school called Christ the King. How funny is that? And, you know, through his mom's doing, they questioned everything, you know, some things didn't sit right with them from the Bible. And, you know, I've been promising, and I will go through things in the Bible and the different religions. Jesus says some of them are their messages, his messages, and some are not. And of course, Cornell pointed out these inconsistencies, like, oh, that's just not sitting right with me. So he dropped out of public school, which was good and bad. Because he did, you know, connect with some darkness and substances and stuff, but he also connected with the music scene, which was good. Just writing here, he wrote Yamamoto, his bandmate, is a tall white. Yeah, Andrew Wood is a soulmate of his. I might get into his passing in another video, we'll see. He's saying promiscuity is not a positive thing. Although God does not judge you when you go to the other side, you judge yourself because that's not what was meant for your higher self. So you kind of like, he says that your life review is a little cringy. I had part of my life review and it's still going on, so I can attest it's very cringy. You're shown everything that you've done, how it affects other people, decisions that you should have made, but it's not from them. You're watching it, it's from you, and you're like, so let's see here. Yeah, he's saying it's the fire and brimstone of the Catholic Christian religion that turns people away. And I've talked about that before. Yeah, just, you know, Jesus's suggestions being turned into commandments, which people feel like they've already failed, so they give up. So interesting. He was a fishmonger at that fish market in Seattle, and I used to have layovers there in the 90s, and I would just he says I saw him, and now I'm remembering, like, I remember seeing a fishmonger and just being like, that guy seems like he should be doing something else. But they were amazing. They really make a scene and throw the fish. Wow, I knew they were going to surprise me with stuff. This has happened a lot where they've shown me times where I've run into, like, times in the past, like, people and didn't know. He was completely sober when he wrote his album Revelations, which was good. He was able to really connect to the team. He wrote Prophets of Rage. He wrote that, unfortunately, he was anti-Trump, you know, because of the propaganda, and, you know, Trump is Archangel Michael, part of Archangel Michael. So, well, it's very hard to explain. The archangels, it was one of my subscribers explained it as a fractal, and I think that's a very good way to describe it. They're agreeing. It's like the archangels take a fractal of themselves and come down and have a human experience. It's always crazy. You can look at my other videos, and I'll make more videos. Tends to be pretty wacky lifetimes. Not always, like, not as, you know, Chris was a curse breaker, so that just adds another layer of drama. But not every galactic being is a curse breaker. It's very hard to become successful when you take that role. So we can't all be that, because it would just be too hard, and I'll get into that at another time. So moving on. It says, be very careful as a galactic being. You are most likely, like I said before, on the spectrum of autism or ADHD, which you can see many people I've read for have injured themselves. That's very common, being clumsy, being extra. He said, y'all doing too much. They're really funny. They're up to date with all the current, they're hilarious. So he's like, seriously, take this caution, words of caution. People with ADHD, autism, hurt themselves a lot through sports, being in a band, construction. Galactic beings can be clumsy and go too far in their body movements. And then many galactic beings, especially in group of Jesus, Metatron, I'll get into that at another time, going into detail, but each group has their own, I don't know what to call it, like flaws, positives and negatives, but addiction can be Chris struggled with that. Jesus has talked about that with his group can turn, like Metatron's group can turn too much to food. Jesus's group can turn to alcohol, substances. So Chris did struggle a little bit more. He's saying more with alcohol, but at some point substances. He knew not to go too far, but anyway, if you see the combination of star seeds, galactic beings, injuring themselves, and then he said especially male star seeds will take what they're prescribed, and that is a warning to not do that. If you to try to take the least amount of pain pills that you can, that is, even though that's not what ended him, and we'll talk about that, that's just, if you take anything from this video, when you're injured, when you have surgery, take the least amount that you can stand, because oftentimes your tolerance for pain medication goes up anyway, and it's a very complicated message, and he feels for anyone who is in pain, but just try. He's saying every generation, every period of time has its challenges. Like, for example, like the prophets, who he's very close to, had their challenges, but especially with his generation, Gen X, had a lot of abuse from either parents, teachers, all of the above, but then were just, when they got to be a teenager or a young adult, or just like, here's drugs, all kinds, and it's great. And that was, you know, that's a different experience, a different problem to have to deal with than like the prophets having to fight the Romans. But it's many who are alive now, alive then, didn't feel like they were being challenged in their life as much as, say, the prophets, or, you know, the greatest generation in World War II, but they actually were. It's just in a different way. And he'd like to give you that maybe problems are different, but problems are problems, and every group has their challenges. And he's saying, in a way, in some ways, it was harder because, you know, the good and bad were not so clearly defined, and there's so many negative influences saying, take this thing, it's good, it'll make you feel good, and tricky. That's what he's saying. It's like, and it's getting even trickier. Like the devil, the dark reptilian energy, however you want to call it. If you don't want to agree with my terminology, the energy of it is getting trickier. And he's saying it's coming. There's a line from his song about coming through a kiss. It's coming through our relationships, and it's tricky because it's getting more clever and coming through people, and the people don't even know. They think that they're a victim. You know, he's using that terminology of covert narcissism again, of like that Jezebel spirit coming through and hiding itself under a mask of normalcy and of an attractive girl. And he's saying he doesn't mean to keep putting it on women. That was just his downfall. But he's saying it's coming through with men, many of them actually coming through as some sort of hero in being like a beta male, like a not masculine male, thinking like using that mask, but actually having the darkness. He's saying things are getting really tricky. The dark reptilian energy is always maneuvering around people have a new understanding, and it will hide itself in a different area. So to always be aware of it. And he's saying many of you in the spiritual community are aware and listen to and videos about all kinds of toxic behavior, and that's good. And a little more numerology for people. He did pass in room 1136, even though he wasn't supposed to, but they also knew that he might. So 11, it adds up, the numbers add up to 11, which is Archangel Uriel, which is me. And then, but added together equals 2. So that's Jesus and Uriel together. So there is that. Okay, so I'm gonna get in, let me get on my computer and get into a few more messages from Chris. Okay, so Chris was a fan of Nickelback, and he doesn't appreciate just the cheap shot that this comedian, Brian Posen, he says Brian is a dark reptilian with not a lot of musical taste. Just took a cheap shot at Nickelback because Nickelback was overplayed by people of that generation, a little bit younger than Chris and I. And so what is just easy, low-hanging fruit to make fun of Nickelback. And then followers, copied this bad Chris is just calling him a bad comedian. Followers copied him, and then, basically Chris is saying, don't be a follower. don't turn your back on really good musicians just because, you know, some comedian took a pot shot at them, and you know, they've been overplayed. It's, you know, they're overplayed because they're good and because they're talented. He's said the masculine energy should be trusted too. So there's been this idea of women saying like, oh, I just want to vent. And yes, I'm a woman, and sometimes I just want to vent. But he's saying also sometimes masculine energy is helpful. So if a masculine hears enough about something, he may say, you know, you need to quit that job, dump that friend, get out of that organization. And sometimes that is the best advice. So there's a happy medium there. And he's saying to women, it's okay to avoid drama unless, you know, it's something you just can't get out of, but most often you can. Okay, so he's saying a sign of a bad band is sometimes they will sabotage their lead singer by, and you'll see this, he said, like with like garage bands. He couldn't stand this. They play their instruments so loud that you can't hear the singer. He's saying avoid those kinds of bands. It's not good for your soul to listen to that. He's saying he really wants to send a message out about bad staffing at venues, especially these young, he's not trying to pick on women, but just, he says, relax. And he said young guys too. Relax. You're pulling tickets. You're not doing open heart surgery. Please stop it. Please stop bringing bad vibes to the music, to the show, to the venue. You know, that sourpuss you're putting on when you take tickets. You're not cool. Said be very careful of having a chip on your shoulder, going into a relationship, being bitter about the last relationship, being bitter about the opposite sex, and wanting to be right. Because he said when you enter a relationship wanting to be right, you automatically make the other person wrong. So I'm just reading ahead. He told me to do my bit about Randy, the manager. So Chris Cornell came in to talk to me, and he was with Michael Jackson, and I started talking about Randy, Michael Jackson's music manager, who was responsible for his passing. I did this after I had done an intuitive read for Jesus on Mayorkas, that politician who is in charge of the Mexican border. And we just started riffing, and I was like, I told Jesus, I was like, he sounds like Randy, and I'm very clairaudient, so I listen to people's voices, and it gives me a lot of insight into them. And I was like, why do they sound the same? And they're like, it's a thing, because they're not from the East Coast, but they sound very similar, and they're like, it's just a way of talking, like, yeah. So it's like, they try to sound cool and like hip. And so by the way, when I do these intuitive readings on people from Jesus, I put them on Instagram, and I put them in my community tab for YouTube. So what I do is Jesus talks to me about, you know, famous people and what their galactic origins are, what's going on with them. And it's for protection for us, and it's also to let us know who's a star seed, and you know, it's very important. But anyway, back to the conversation. Chris Cornell wants me to, because I imitated Randy, Michael Jackson's manager, and so he wants me to try to do it for you guys. Okay, I'm gonna do it. So in the video, like, Randy was interviewed about Michael Jackson, and so, you know, Randy worked Michael Jackson to the ground, but he hid that under this guise of being like hip and cool and into Michael Jackson, which he wasn't. Randy did not listen to the music. So in the video, Randy's like, he's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be terrific. Michael's gonna bring out all the hits. It's gonna be fantastic. And that's how he talks. And they're saying like a lot. I talk to them like that, and they just thought it was so funny. They were like, yes, like that's how fake people sound. Like, oh yeah. So yeah, the interviewer was like, so we see that Michael Jackson is, you know, back on tour, and he's going to be doing so many shows. And he's like, oh yeah, it's going to be terrific. Oh, Michael's going to do all the hits. It's going to be fantastic. And he's such a snake, such a dark reptilian, but that's like how sneaky they are. And it's going back to like, I'm happy, you don't seem happy. Like, people who talk like that, like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you seem happy? Or, oh, that person's just unhappy. It's gonna be fantastic. Michael's gonna do all the hits. And it's like, they want you to listen to that, because that is someone who clearly doesn't have Michael Jackson's interest at heart. And when someone says like, you just don't seem happy, they don't care about your happiness. And anyway, that's probably, if you're reptilian, you know, not dark reptilian, you're probably like, duh, like, you know, you're neurotypical, and you're like, yeah, that person's being fake. For people on the spectrum, and well, it could be for anybody, but more people on the spectrum get fooled by people like that. Like, okay, back to his messages. He said, people tried to pigeonhole me. People do that because they use musicians in bands as an identity. Okay, this is something that people need to watch out for now. Okay, a way that dark reptilian energy can trick you now is to come through as being like the honest person. In the past, you know, dark reptilian, narcissist, toxic people would for sure like love bomb people, but in the past more so, but many starseeds have been fooled by the person who's like, I'm gonna tell you like it is. I'm the honest person. I'm not a fan. I'm not sucking up to you. And he's saying, beware of that person too. Being negative all the time and being a jerk does not mean you're being honest. So please watch out for that, because that is a trap that many famous people, or, you know, people, star seeds, empaths fall for, because they're like, oh, you know, here's these fake people, but this person is, you know, criticizing me, so they're actually being honest, and so they're not a dark person. They're not someone who's going to take advantage of me. He's saying that's far from the truth. A lot of dark reptilians want nothing more than to take down a starseed. I mean, that's their goal, is to take down starseeds, is to take power away from starseeds, is to enslave starseeds. And if they can do it without having to love bomb, with just being like dark and negative, they're even happier about that. So oh my God. So I was listening to Chris's music. He asked me to prepare for this, and he sang one note so high, guys. I'm not kidding you. It set off my robot vacuum, and we were just laughing so hard. And I was like, because his energy, their energy was coming through too. And beware, guys. Yes, people have probably warned you, dark energy sets off electronics, but so does their energy. And the combination of them being with me while I was listening to the music and him hitting that high note, he wanted me to like tell you guys that. He just wants to warn you all that with all of this knowledge that starseeds, galactic beings have about dark reptilians, narcissists, what have you, so many are and will be removing themselves from these people that they're going to have these brawls with each other. They're also going to some of them having one final hurrah, like you know, I'm going out taking as many people as I can, this type of energy, or just tantrums. And what we're seeing a lot now are tantrums, like dark reptilians who used to feed off of starseeds in their lives, and those people are no longer there and they're having tantrums. And be very aware of that. Yes, and he's talking more about Susan Silver, his ex is a dark reptilian. He said, we were in our younger 20s in Seattle and everybody's doing their creativity, and she's there capitalizing on it, which is admirable, but explains, like, he says, all business and shrewd. And she developed that. He said she was a golden child in her home. Her brother was, she had this pattern. Her brother was a scapegoat empath who passed away from substances. And then she fell right into that, managing bands and being like always the bigger person, the adult in the room. And he's saying that it wasn't necessarily true, like and he said she actually, you know, like Randy wasn't really into music, like, but wanted to be cool and wanted to be the bigger person, and you know, fell into that pattern from childhood of what happened with her brother, and she got into that pattern with Chris and tried to like become a parent to him. And you know, he sang that song, You Can't Change Me, and that happened in his relationship, where it became like no matter what he did, he was bad, she was good. I teased him. I listened to a couple of his live shows, and I was like, do musicians have the audience sing when they're tired sometimes? He's like, yes. He's like, they love it, the audience loves it, but sometimes they are just really tired and need a break. So that was just a little joke between us. You can't run your relationship like a business. Yeah, don't be a bean counter in your relationship. And he's saying also, like, if you marry a musician or an astronaut or a starseed, you know, someone who needs to travel, don't expect them also to, and this is, he said, this is a very reptilian, Elvis talked about this, if you marry a reptilian, not necessarily a dark reptilian, but even just marrying a reptilian, they, that's a way that it's not compatible. We'll just leave it at that. Galactics are not compatible with reptilians in serious relationships. They just don't operate the same way. So, although they are very attracted to each other, each having the thing the other one doesn't have. Ooh, this video is getting really long. But honestly, I could make 2-hour videos every day. Chris has so much information to give, but I will try to keep an eye on the time. We need to really protect children. They're saying they're getting attacked at school. And the spiritual warfare has made men against women. No one's winning. The children aren't winning. We really need to work on that. Some things I've already talked about, so let me just go through. If you're trying to do a creative project, he says just do it. Even if some of it sucks, just do it anyway. And if you're procrastinating, just do a little bit, as much as you can. You know, he talked about his advice for men is to get more into your masculine energy, and he's saying he unfortunately is seeing many women walking around with their heads leaned forward, all their hair is forward, and they're walking around like angry robots. And He said that's just from having too much on your plate, being too much in your masculine energy. He's saying it's not worth it, it's not attractive, and it's not good for your health. It's causing a lot of health issues. Okay, so now let's talk about Chris's passing, guys. This is going to be very hard to say, but I guess we'll start by talking about Martin Kirsten, his bodyguard. And there are people that I haven't been able to talk about, but I've been given permission to talk about him, obviously. So he said Martin Kirsten is a dark reptilian. He was a snake even before he hired him. He was a criminal growing up. He played on people's heartstrings because he said he was a changed man. He worked over Heidi Klum, stole her from Seal, manipulated her, I looked this up because he had me, ended up getting like 300,000 from her. I hate to use numbers because I don't want to like taint the reading, but you know, just in case what I looked up was not true, the sentiment is true. They give me messages and I try to look up some of the details, but he took money from Heidi Klum. Heidi Klum is a reptilian, not dark reptilian, but Seal is a galactic, Pleiadian, Arcturian, and they were not the best match, but Martin Kirsten broke them up. He came in this is like going back to what Chris was talking about before, how galactics, especially like being a musician, so going back to Heidi, like Seal couldn't be there every day, so Martin Klum came in, you know, as a bodyguard, but then got into Heidi Klum's business and the children, acting like this hero and better dad than Seal, and that's a bad sign, a really bad sign. And came in like he was better than Seal and some sort of like a amazing like stepfather and everything, you know, completely love bombed Heidi, everything a woman could want. And Seal, who had an abusive background and came to change the break generational curse in his family, which he did through his children. He was in a really bad way. So Martin Kirsten got into this habit of him being a dark reptilian and taking down starseeds by taking their woman away. And that made Martin feel like he was better than Seal. So now let's cut to Chris Cornell hires Martin Kirsten, the same bodyguard who broke up Seal's marriage. He never talked about that he was very clever, but by clever, I don't mean like intelligent. He was very snake-like, very savvy, very dark reptilian, knew when to open his mouth, when to be quiet. And sometimes that's a sign. Someone just being too like savvy, like starseeds, you know, can learn to be savvy, but are often on the spectrum, make mistakes. You can see when I make my videos, these aren't the best quality. I say the wrong things. I say a lot. You know, I'm not always camera ready, not as savvy, but sometimes like we have to, there's nothing against being savvy and professional and kept, and but sometimes, you know, when people are too perfect, Martin Kirsten was that guy who was dark, but so made up for it by trying to come across as perfect. He didn't talk about his relationship. Chris Cornell, being a bleeding heart, took him on and was like, oh, you know, this guy has a dark past, and Chris had been judged on his past, you know, on his, you know, having like a bad family situation, which he didn't like that label. So there was a lot that Chris saw that made him hire Martin. So he's really warning women about this perfect mask and facade. Many of you have been fooled by people like that. I have. Okay, so these people pray, they're sycophants, he said, and the dark reptilians, his ex-wife and Martin Kirsten, just use celebrities. He says, of course, there has to be people hanging around celebrities. That's, you know, part of their job. But unfortunately, these people sneak through, and, you know, so we're going back, wants me to go back to Susan Silver and how she comes across. She comes across as an angel. She's even made videos with his daughter about mental health. He's saying that's not what their mission was. That's not what they're experts in. So it does come across as a little hollow. But he says people who were in his life when he broke up with Susan Silver know what she was really like. She tried to keep his guitars. She doesn't play guitar. Like, she was spiteful, even though she comes across as so soft-spoken. I could talk like her. She comes across as like, yes, and then this happened, and then, yes, so, let's talk about mental health. I don't know if I've ever imitated people. Like, I can kind of imitate people. I don't know. I should do that more often. But, you know, my channel is about channeling. But anyway, like, that's how she sounds. Like, very just soft-spoken, well-spoken. And, you know, Chris asked me to listen to her, and I was just like, Chris, she sounds nice. Like, I really don't want to talk bad about her. And he's like, but, you know, you have to tell people the truth about what happened. So she had always held a grudge against Chris, and I explained what Martin's deal is. So she hired Martin to take Chris out. And you know, Susan is she's dark reptilian, very good at reading people. And, you know, Chris and I talked about this. He said dark reptilians can recognize other dark reptilians. And she recognized that in Martin. And so she paid Martin and originally offered him a lot of money to take Chris out. And so let's get to what happened. Let me make sure there's no more messages. Yes, the dark reptilian cannot come through when you're practicing gratitude. They like self-pity and darker emotions. That's when they can really get to you. And some people think that Chris was dark because he's saying about darkness, but he's saying, no, that's different. That those were messages. And he's talking a little bit about how there's been this effort to cut criminals slack. He cut Martin Kirsten's slack, and he's saying on a societal level people are doing that, and he's saying unfortunately, like it's become a race thing, and it's actually causing more racism because the majority of people of certain races like are not criminals, but if they're cutting criminals slack, then it will actually cause racism. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, so let's get back to Mr. Martin Kirsten. Chris is saying that's not even a real name, and he's not criticizing people who change their name, but it's more to emphasize his whole character. He's a fraud. So Susan Silver made a deal with him. So Martin Kirsten was starting to just like Susan Silver, like be the caretaker of Chris Cornell. Now, Chris Cornell is saying, like, guys, yes, it's people can help each other, but he didn't need these people as caretakers. He wasn't that like far gone. Even when he was partying, you know, in his younger days, he got out of that. And so definitely he was not partying, using like substances, drinking and stuff when he was, when he passed and when he was with Vicki, his second wife. He was doing great. He was taking some prescription meds, but anyway, Martin Kirsten was presenting himself as like this, like not just bodyguard, but like this, like a personal trainer, health guru. And Chris was buying it because Martin was in good shape. And so that's how Martin was working him over. He was getting him to take like no dose when he needed to pick me up, and getting him to take more. He actually had me look up his like what was in his toxicology report. So taking more Ativan to go to sleep. And so this is what happened. So Martin had in his mind to take out Chris, but he was going to make it look like an overdose. So Martin was slowly giving Chris more substances that Martin said were fine, like, so he gave him butalbital, and these things were prescribed to Chris, but not to come in together. But that was like for his headaches, and then it's so hard to explain. But so this was planned. Martin was working with other people, so when Chris performed that night, he had already taken Chris, Martin had given Chris like no-dose to give him energy during the concert. That's fine. But Chris did have headaches, but also a woman was hired in the crowd to hit Chris in the head. So Chris was hit in the head before his concert and actually had a concussion and was bleeding. But Chris talked to Martin about it and was like, I really want to do the show. And Martin said, you're fine. I can tell you're fine. So now Martin had this running idea of how to take Chris out. And so any way that he could, he did. So he gave him the no-dose. It's not like his responsibility, but he made it his responsibility of like, let me close this. I don't really need it. So he made it seem like he was like his health coach. And so he gave him, he's like, here, take this. You can wake up for the concert. Then Chris was smashed in the head by a girl in the, not in the audience, but before the show. And Martin was like, you're fine. And he's playing on Chris's sense of responsibility. Plus, Chris had a history of physical abuse from his father, from girlfriends, and it was often with physical abuse, you're hit in the head. So there is this negative pattern of energy happening to him. So what Chris should have done was stand up for himself, go to the hospital, get his head checked out. And, but he didn't want, he was like, the show must go on. He didn't want to cancel the show. He put his fans and the show and his work above himself. And this is where the dark reptilian energy is able to take you out. Not just Martin, who is dark reptilian, but the energy when you're hurt, when you're sick, if you're not mentally feeling well and you don't honor yourself, you're giving permission for the dark reptilian energy to come in. You're saying, I don't honor my being, I don't take care of my being. So it's like, okay, then I can pounce on that, I can make it worse. So now, cut to the concert. Chris, before the concert, has a concussion and he's taken no-dose. So he's feeling out of it. And Chris would like me to tell you that some people feel very tired when they have a concussion, and some people are completely euphoric and energized and confused. He was a mixture. He was in and out. he was tired, but he was also confused, and also had this weird zapping energy where it was like the back of the head. And Chris is saying that affects your sleep, where he couldn't sleep that night. So he said Martin was like eating all of this up because Martin was planning on taking him out. So, Martin's like, okay, yes, you're fine, go up there. And so Chris's dose of Ativan should have been 1. So Martin also gave him an Ativan. So now we're at, Chris had already taken 1. Now we're at 2. So now Chris is starting to get tired when he's on stage. Now he has a concussion, weird symptoms from that. He's sensitive, so he's emotionally upset, and he's ruminating about someone wanting to hurt him, and his soul could feel that something was wrong, but he didn't know where it was coming from because it was coming in all these different directions. But he was overriding all of it with this responsibility, and also this energy that abuse victims have, of where they're not seeing the abuse. They're not seeing, like, he wasn't seeing how Martin was, acting like this caretaker, and it was weird, and he didn't even really understand the depth of Susan Silver's revenge on him. She really wanted revenge. She was humiliated. She didn't ever think that Chris would leave her. Why would, she's the best wife ever, who, took care of him. Why would he leave her? So, so now let's go back to that time. So he's taken 2 Ativan already, a no dose. He has a concussion. He's saying his emotions were all over the place. At some point he was angry because he wasn't feeling well, and he was angry at the fan who hurt him. And so then he finishes the show, goes to the hotel with Martin, and I'm closing my eyes because Chris is talking to me. He goes to the hotel with Martin, and he's wired, and he's like, oh, I'm wired, and we have to travel, and complaining, and I got hit in the head, and I just don't feel right. Martin's like, you're fine. Gives him 2 more Ativan. So now he, instead of taking 1, he's taken 4. And let me look at the toxicology report. Also the butalbital, which is also a sedative. So now he's got a sedative, a no dose, 4 Ativans, which act as a sedative, and a concussion. And he was given like a decongestant, which is a sedative. So Martin's hoping with all these sedatives that Chris is going to just pass away. He's going to stop breathing, which happens. Martin's pretty sure that with all of these sedatives, that Chris is going to pass away in his sleep. Martin was like 100% sure that was going to happen. Now, Martin wasn't 100% sure Martin wasn't 100% sure, but he was pretty sure that with all those substances that he was going to stop breathing in his sleep. But Martin wasn't 100% sure that was the night that, like before that night that that was the night that Chris was actually going to pass away. He was hoping he would and giving him substances as he would, but Chris was not a drug user at that time. So Martin was really like, oh, this is going to be hard. But Martin knew his past and how people just make assumptions, and he's like, was hoping he could give him enough. And then when he gave him that much, then he was sure, like pretty sure, that Chris was going to pass away in his sleep. He was going to stop breathing. So Chris is saying Martin came to his room like 3 times. Like the first time to help him like talk about the next day, help him with his stuff, and then gave him the 2 pills. And then Martin made this like weird excuse to come back again, and it was awkward, and Chris was starting to get really tired. He said he talked to his wife on the phone. And then he like turned his hotel phone off. He said, yeah, he always does that, so it doesn't like get a wrong wake-up call. But he turned his cell phone off because he finally was tired, and that alarmed Vicki because they usually talk. And then Vicki contacted Martin, and Martin was like, oh, you know, I need to show Vicki I'm checking on Chris. But Martin like stretched it out and was now assuming that Chris had passed away. So Martin like played up this, like went downstairs and was like, something's wrong with Chris, but I'll take care of it. And Chris is saying, yeah, he kept telling people, I'll take care of it. And so he's like, I'll take care of it. And then Martin had the key to his room, but you know, the latch was on, but he said Martin didn't even really knock on the door. He just put the keypad, like lightly knocked, and he assumed Chris had passed away. So he made a show out of like kicking the door in. But when he kicked it in, Chris had not passed away. He was out of it and like was like, what is happening? And so Chris would like you to think about how this happened. Like, have you ever finally been deep asleep, but there's a commotion and it's like you can't wake up? So he heard the commotion, but he just couldn't rouse himself. He was like in this weird state of like, he made it into like a dream. So Martin came in, and then Martin could see that Chris had not passed away, but was not responding. And he wasn't responding due to all the sedatives mixed with the concussion and his body finally being like, now Chris was not going to pass away. He didn't have enough things in his system to pass away. And his body was strong. Like, you know, he had taken stuff in his youth and he had been through a lot and survived. But so what Martin did is put a pillow over Chris's head until he passed out. And then Martin freaked out and he wrapped the cord around the door and put Chris up and staged the scene. And he was able to do this. He did take a chance, but was able to do this with Vicki on the phone. And how he was able to do this was he had an excuse for breaking in, and then he didn't even have a scuffle with Chris because he was passed out asleep. So he was saying what he was doing to saying it to Vicki, but he was actually doing something different. And it took the whole process like almost an hour. So, or, you know, and so he staged the whole thing. So Chris had actually passed away from the smothering, and Martin had foolproof excuses, the substances. Chris's past talking to Vicki on the phone. And throughout the whole thing, I mean, unless Chris had woken up after the smothering, the whole thing had been like excused. So, you know, Martin just had this the dark reptilian in him just made him into, he saw himself as like a victim. And was able to talk himself into like seeing Susan Silver as a victim. And so, guys, like, as much as you know, you all may tune into spiritual channels and try to do spiritual practices to talk to your spiritual team, dark reptilians get talked to too, by the dark reptilian energy, and they're given good like tips on how to be conniving and what to do. And I don't want to be a fear monger talking about this stuff, but you just really have to be careful from just maybe like a homeless person who's doing substances and the dark reptilian energy says, oh, that person, attack that person, they're after you. And it you know, if it's a starseed, even the better. I mean, the dark reptilian energy likes mayhem, but especially goes after galactic beings. There is this just bigger spiritual warfare, and it sounds crazy to talk about, but anyway, Chris Martin took Chris Martin, I'm sorry, Chris Martin, oh no, I hope I didn't say that before. Martin Kirsten, I really struggle with names. Martin Kirsten took him out, thankfully, for Martin, not for Chris and not for Vicki, not for the family, not for any of us, but for Martin's case, what Chris is saying is the team, there was a lot of laziness going on, that they didn't want to investigate, and the hotel didn't want to get in trouble, so didn't investigate thoroughly, didn't offer up the information as thoroughly. They felt like maybe they made mistakes, they were negligent, and didn't want to be a part of it. So the original investigators, toxicologists, they bought the story. They didn't, they weren't investigating as it was, could have been, they were investigating it as a suicide. They made a mistake. So Martin had that in his favor. And then Vicki was traumatized, and she was hurt and angry that Chris would do this. And, you know, it was coming off of like, why didn't he get his head checked? Why didn't he, why didn't he, and she related that to her, like, you need to take care of yourself because of us. Why is he not putting his health first? And then why would he not answer his phone? And then she was thinking maybe he was unhappy. Maybe he did take himself out. And she was just traumatized. And then she thought, like, if someone did take him out, you know, someone smashed his head, like, maybe I'm not safe and maybe my children aren't safe. And so she also was really upset about him having substances in his system, and she blamed the doctor, which is not his fault. It's the prescription for Ativan is 1 every 12 hours. So she's just lashing out, trying to protect her family. And she was like 50-50, like maybe he did, maybe he was taken out. And at this point, like, she had me an idea that a thought, Chris has been trying to talk to her, that maybe it was Martin, but her emotions took over, and the way that it was presented to her, and that she was like on the phone with him, there's just, it seems like there's just no plausible way that it could have happened, but it did. And you know, it's one of the, Chris is saying, like, one of the perfect crimes out there. But Chris is also saying that there are people out there who could see how that would happen. And just intuitively know that Martin, Kirsten may have done it or is not to be trusted. But Chris says he's very wealthy. Well, not like very wealthy, but he's wealthier than what he could have earned on his own. And, you know, from taking advantage of people, taking advantage of Heidi, taking him out. And now everyone has their head down. And Chris is apologizing. He's very humble. He's apologizing for this being long. He has a lot more to say. He might come back. But he wants to just let you all go. He knows we're human. He knows this is long. Pray to Chris if you have problems with substances, problems with bullying, problems with abuse, you want to get out of a toxic situation. You know, always pray to Jesus. Please feel free. Pray to my team. They might be your team. I mean, they are everyone's team in a way, but you might also have like your ancestors, your own people that you know. They've come to you. Obviously, ask them for help. But Chris wants to talk. And if you feel like you have any sort of intuition, you can do automatic writing, you want to talk to him, use whatever you have, always protect yourself, but talk to him and pray to him if you're having any of these issues. He's getting stronger as a spirit. He's trying to talk to people. You may see other people starting to read and connect to him. And he's saying, tune into that if you feel it would be helpful. And for now, Chris and everyone would like to say they love you and thank you for your patience in watching this. And he really hopes that this information is helpful. And please honor yourself. Please protect yourself. If you're not feeling well, cancel that show. Cancel things. If you broke your ankle, if you're hurt, if you need help, ask for it from the right people, but take care of yourself. Find out everything you can about whatever conditions you have, whatever health problem you have, and don't worry about canceling a trip or a show or a meeting. You're important, and do your best in life, but if you have to take care of yourself, please do it. And that's it. He loves you. They all love you. All right, goodbye.